Hey there, dear viewers. Welcome to Obsessed with Werewolves. I'm so glad you're here because I know you, like me, AJ was Quain, have a passion for all things werewolf. From their captivating tales to their mysterious nature, we're going to explore it all. So, let's dive right in and satisfy our obsession together. Like on. I had got Nadine several blocks before I heard the desperate howl from Opaline. This scared Nadine and she started sobbing for my mate's life. The only thing I knew was my heart was pounding and there was angry pain through the bond. I waited for a moment, processing what her pain-filled hell could mean. A moment later, I grabbed Nadine and dragged her back the way we came, meeting the sea Opaline. We didn't even make it halfway back before Nadine's mate appeared. In wolf form, blood all over him. I took a sniff and cowled and felt the death warning coming from my throat. He shifted and put his hands up. Shessa lied. I'm not that stupid. Just let me see my mate. I looked down at Nadine, who was shaking her head a little. In a shaky voice she whispered, I don't want to be near you. You hurt my pack member and Luna. I warned her to not fight me and let me have you. And she refused. I will not let my mate go, he said in a softer tone. Nadine shook her head again. You don't harm my pack in order to win me over. Either you leave me alone in my pack, or worse things will happen than being in a fight. The male looked a little hurt by this, but nodded and stepped back. All right, I'll leave you alone. That's pretty, my fated mate. Lights flashed around me and the room spun with the beat of the heavy techno music the DJ was playing. Nadine seemed to accept this and looked up at me. I pulled her along after me, glancing over my shoulder once to see the male watching but not following. When we got to the bar, I threw open the doors and immediately found Opaline with people surrounding her. One woman was holding a bottle above my mate's paw. I looked at the paw and gave a low growl. Pissed she was hurt. Storming over, I knelt beside the table and took her head in my hands. I'm here, Opal. You're going to be fine. I tried to help, but I failed. No, don't think like that. You're small, and trained, and easy prey. I don't expect you to win someone as big as he is. But I'm Luna. I'm supposed to protect my pack. I smiled gently at her, happy she was referring to us as her pack. Next time, let me help Kale and take out the attackers until you've had some training. She whines and leans forward to lick my face. I look up at Kaelin. The other two. Dead, he says, not bothering to show his worry for his Luna. Get Nadine to the car. He'll grab Opaline and sit in the back. He nods and walks out the doors with Nadine. I wrap my arms around Opal's back and lift her up, securing the blanket around her. Wait, she needs medical treatment. The woman with the bottle says urgently. I look at her and try to be nice. I've got my own doctors. Don't worry about it. She steps back carefully and I run out to the car. Kaelin opens the back passenger door and I slide in, keeping Opaline in my arms. After Kaelin gets inside, we're speeding into the woods towards the pack hospital. Are you okay? I ask Kaelin after a few minutes of silence. I'm fine. Your mate decided to take him on and left me with the other two. I tried to get to her, but they tackled me, so I had to fight. By the time I was able to get to her, she was already wounded. Opaline winced, looking towards Kaelin with an apologetic look in her eyes. My friend glanced in the rear. You mirror and sighed. I forgive you, but next time, don't do that. You can talk, but do not throw yourself into a fight without warning me again. It took only a few minutes to get to the hospital and Nadine hurried to help open the door. I got out and rushed towards the building. A couple nurses were already waiting with a stretcher just inside the doors. I set my mate on the stretcher and kissed her nose. Don't be afraid. They'll be waiting here when you're finished. She whined a little until she yelped when a nurse put an needle in her backside. Her eyes stayed locked on mine, somehow pleading for something. In my mind, she says, it's just like last time. I don't like hospitals. Like on. Her eyes soon fluttered shut and her whines quieted. The nurses took her away to the emergency room while I went to the waiting room. I sat down and leaned forwards, putting my head in my hands and breathing deeply. I sensed Kaelin and Nadine sitting nearby, trying not to stare. But my thoughts are on what Opaline told me just before she went under. I knew I couldn't go in with her, even though I wanted to, but I was the only one she trusted completely. Something crashed from down the hall of doors. Then there were screams. My head jerked up and I see Kaelin standing, tense and ready for anything. A nurse comes running in the room and I now stand. She swallows and gestures behind her. Elfa, you might need to go back there. A moment later, the nurse faints. Kaelin and I share a look of confusion before I sprint in the direction of all the commotion. My beta is behind me just in case and I see their windows and people running about. Before I reach the doors, there's a loud thump like someone hitting a tree or something. What I see inside the room doesn't make me feel any better. There is glass everywhere from whatever broke. Tools are strewn all over the floor. Doctors and nurses are cowering in every corner except one. He has a tranquilizer that's been mutilated aimed at something under the counter. I look to where the patient who's being worked on should be and find no one. Confusion at this. I walk towards the doctor and throw the gun to the floor, pushing him away. Then I look to under the counter. Somehow, Opaline is awake and shaking. She doesn't seem to have much time though before she collapses and hurts herself. In her mouth is the other part of the gun. Her eyes are more feral than I've ever seen, and her injured paw is lifted in the air as to not put pressure on it. She growls low in warning and I back up a little. Taking my gaze from her, I look around and see no one else hurt or bleeding. Everyone get out. I order and watch them leave. I stop Drew NT, one of the doctors, and whisper, "You stay here." He nods and backs away slowly. Kaelin eyes me and asks, "Do you want me?" Her eyes. He'll need backup if I can't control her. He nods and shuts the doors, locks them, then starts clearing off the workstations and surgical bed. I turn to my mate and Neil. "Opaline, please come out so we can fix your paw." She growls again and tries to back up more, but can't since there is a wall behind her. I know you're scared, but this needs to be done. You will get your wound infected if this continues. Opaline licks her chops after setting the gun piece down, then growls again. Like on, maybe she'll let you pick her up, since she won't come out. Kaelin suggests softly. I take a step towards Opal, but hear a soft growl. Behind me, True NT says, "Has she had any hospital visits before?" A while ago, she had a life-threatening injury and was taken to a hospital in her old pack. I'm not sure how that experience went for her. Just know that she's terrified of being worse off than she is. I heard True NT rummaging for something. Benny was beside me with a bowl in hand. She will like this. It will help calm her down but not put her to sleep. She will still be able to keep her consciousness until the other medicine take full effect. I took the bowl and approached Opaline slowly. She continued to growl, but instead of lunging at me, she tried getting away. When I was a few feet from her, I set the bowl down and slid it closer, then backed up again. Seeing this as a sign of retreat, she glances at the food and sniffs. Her ears perk up and she crawls forward. I watch as Opaline starts eating whatever is in the bowl before looking up at me. Her eyes are calmer, less dangerous. Her stance is a little less defensive and more exhausted, like Shess just ran for her life, and her tail was in between her legs. Whining, she tries to come towards me, as if she finally knew who I was and understood she was safe. But once she put her wounded paw down, she collapsed. Looking up at me, she whined again. I stepped closer and she watched with pain-filled eyes. Encouraged by this, I went over and brushed my hand through her fur. Opal closed her eyes and leaned closer to me. Kaelin, find something we can put her on. I continue to brush her fur between my fingers while they're shuffling behind me, and Opal is now calmly breathing. After a minute or two, I hear Klyn's voice. It's the best I could find. I looked and nodded. It was a metal shelf piece that hasn't been damaged yet. Okay, put it at the other end of her and on the ground. He does what I say and I feel Opaline stiffen, but I don't let her get up. When the metal is in place, I move closer to my mate and rest her head and paws on my knee, then gently grab her sides and push. She starts growling again, but not at me. Opaline turns her head towards Kaelin and snaps at him. He immediately backs away. I make her look at me and lock my eyes with hers. He will not hurt you. We are just moving you out of here and onto the metal so I can carry you without the dangers of touching your paw. In response, she whines. I notice now that she won't use her mind for some reason and pause to stare at her. Something is wrong. I tell Kalen. He looks at me with furrowed brows. What do you mean? I haven't heard her say anything through the link. Wait. She can talk to you. He asks incredulously. After we marked each other earlier, yes. The only that can't be done is me talking to her through the link. I don't know why. I slide Opaline towards Kale and once again, and this time she lies still. Her eyes are closed once again and she seems to be relaxing a little more with each passing second. Once she's on the metal, I jump out from underneath the counter and help Kaelin lift her up. Careful of her paw, True NT waits by the bed with tools ready, and we lower her until she's on the bed. But don't move her. The doctor grabs a needle filled with clear fluid and starts to inject it slowly into Opaline's body. Then he goes around and looks at her paw. He touches the injured paw with light, steady fingers and Opaline doesn't react. I sigh a breath of relief at knowing she's asleep. True NT turns to me. I will do what I can, but there are going to be no guarantees that it will be the same ever again. What do you mean? I ask. She's tiny for a wolf. Smaller than the average Himalayan at that. I'm afraid to do too much and make it immovable. My real advice to you is use your bond. It'll set the bones. But her being a werewolf and you being her mate should speed up the healing process by a week or so. That's something I have always forgotten about having a mate. If a wolf has a mate and has bonded somewhat to the other, the bond creates this energy that allows the injured to heal faster, even if they have only marked each other. The bond is most powerful once the whole mating process is finished and it heals the injured a lot faster. If Opaline's foot is set correctly and she has enough rest, she should heal within a couple of weeks, which is an advantage. Kaelin glances at my sleeping mate and crosses his arms. Does she need to be in her human form? True NT shrugs and starts to work. It would be easier since they'd probably be larger bones. But no, she does not need to shift. I wouldn't want to cause her any more pain than she's already in. I watch as the doctor starts to help Opaline, hardly able to look away. Kaelin hands him different medical tools and supplies. They work on either side of her while I stand above her head, gently stroking her head and making sure nothing goes wrong. She seems peaceful now, when she's not conscious, though not happy. Her nose twitches sometimes, but she continues to sleep. It's 2 hours when Root NT finally finishes his job and looks up at me. She is going to shift when she wakes up. Most likely, she will be in a lot of pain and start to panic. I would find a place where she will not be at risk to hurting herself or others. Any painkillers. He goes to a cabinet and grabs a tiny bottle, then returns and hands it to me. 3 times a day with food. I can't prescribe anymore without risking her life. If she wakes within the hour, give her some with fluids. She won't feel good enough for food. I nod and glance to Kaelin, who seems to be thinking hard about something. I'm about to get his attention when he asks Drew NT, is there any reason her link won't work, whether from past injuries or not? I stiffen into attention and wait for True NT's answer. He thinks for a long time while cleaning up and picks his words carefully. There are possibilities, but I've never seen or heard of such a case. The only thing I can think of is a head injury and her brain is unable to connect to others correctly because it's still healing. That or malformation from birth. What about being deaf? I ask. He looks up at me with interest. Her wolf isn't deaf, but her human form is. She can send thoughts but not receive them. Does her condition have anything to do with that? Would it be alright if I check her ears once she's stable? He asks. Maybe he'd be able to answer that question if I got a look. Even without checking, do you think it's possible? Anything is possible, he says with a frown. But yes, and if that is the case and her ears are irreversible, then there's no way of helping her. If her ears are able to actually be healed, then it's the opposite. As for her brain, I'm not sure. The brain is a tricky muscle which doesn't like being handled with. I don't think it's possible for her link to work properly if it is her brain. I nod slowly and glance to Kaelin, who gave me a weak and encouraging smile. Let's get her home and situated. Then we'll talk. Opaline. The last thing I remember was gray eyes looking at me with concern and comfort. My sleep was dreamless, which was probably a good thing because I might have had nightmares otherwise. It felt short as well, like I only got 5 minutes, even though when I woke up screaming in pain. It was daylight outside. My hand hurt so much I held and think around the pain. The rest of my body just felt limp with exhaustion though, so when I went to get up and use the bathroom, I nearly fell back on the pillows. I felt a hand brush my hair behind my ears and lips press against my temple. I look over to see Lycon sitting beside me, his mouth curved upwards a little. "Hey, beautiful," he says slowly, ready to drink something. I furrowed my brows. Looking down, I see my hand is in a black cast and I can hardly move it. It doesn't work anymore. Just like my ears. I whisper. Lycon lifted my chin and frowned. "Not necessarily. Your bones are set. They just need to heal. You're going to be okay." My eyes flutter close again and I sigh. I'm so tired. Lycon. His fingers brush through my hair and caress my cheek. I lean into his touch and sigh. Barely conscious anymore. It hurts so much. Lips touch my temple and I feel him get on the bed, pulling me close to him. When I open my eyes, his eyes are only inches away from mine. He says, "I'm right here, Opal." After that, I fall asleep again. Someone is shaking me awake gently and I groan. Pain lancing through my hand and up my arm. I start to cry out until I open my eyes and see Lycon holding a glass of water in one hand and something small in the other hand. Behind him, Kale was holding a bowl of something hot and steaming. They both look to be exhausted and distressed. Lycon says, "Here, we've got medicine and food for you. Do you think you want some soup?" I glance at Kale and nod once. "Craving anything." Lycon put the cup and pill down before coming over and helping me sit up. I rest my hand on my lap and take the pill and water, then let Lycon hold the bowl while I eat. Kale stands near the door with his arms crossed, watching us. He is frowning and looks like he is having bad thoughts. I get tired of this after a while and pause eating to ask him, "What's wrong?" He raises his brows in surprise before shaking his head. "Nothing. Just thinking. About." This sparks a small smile from him. The past. I decide not to ask anymore and finish my soup. Then let Lycon help me to the bathroom. He closes the door behind us and slowly helps me to the toilet. "May I help you?" "Opaline." I glance to my sweats, then to my hand, then to the toilet. Going to the bathroom one-handed was going to be difficult and agonizingly slow. I look to Lycon and blush, nodding my head. "Okay." Wrapping an arm around my back. He pulls my pants and panties down, then lets me sit. While I go, he gets the toilet paper ready and keeps his eyes averted. When I'm finished, we walk over to the sink and he helps me wash my hand while washing his own. By the time my hand is dry and we're back in the bedroom, I'm exhausted again. Lycon lays me down on the bed and covers me, then sits beside me. "We need to talk." "Opaline." I narrow my eyes in confusion, wondering what happened or what I did wrong. When nothing comes to mind, I say, "Nadine isn't here. Someone died. My hand isn't going to heal." "No, no, no." "And yes, your hand will heal," my mate says with a small sad smile. "We need to talk about your trouble with mind linking." "Oh," I say, a little relieved. We talked to the doctor and got some ideas on why it might not be working, and what might happen in later future. At first, my hopes get excited, but then I remember someone telling me that it'll never happen. It's not possible. Kale walks over and stands behind Lycon. "That depends on your condition. The link not working can have many causes. One being you are deaf, which is probably why you can't receive Lycon's thoughts." I tilt my head to one side in curiosity at his statement. "So, in other words, you'll never be able to hear him or others. True NT wants to see you when your strength is up." Lycon explains. "He wants to see exactly what is wrong with your ears and maybe run some tests." But Whisper Eclipse had a doctor that said nothing could be done. "I saw her not too long before I met you." Kale shrugs and gives me a grin. "Just because she says so doesn't mean ours will. True NT is one of the best around. Lycon's father even let him go to human hospitals to check people out who were having problems, and not just with ears. And if it isn't my ears, I ask hesitantly, then it's your brain, and HES not sure if anything can be done if it is. Lycon says, either because of a malformation when you were born or when something happened in your attack a few years ago. If it is the brain, it's protecting itself from further harm or isn't responding correctly just because of the past. He isn't sure. I take this all in carefully and try to stay calm. So, it's a 50-50 shot. Ears or brain? Both men nod their agreement and I slump. This didn't seem like it would just be because of deafness. But maybe. It was one thing to talk about deaf being the leading cause to communicating with my mate, but a whole other thing when it's my brain, one of the most important parts of my body, being the leading cause. Think of it this way. Kale in starts. At least you'll finally know. I shrugged. What if it is my ears? How is he going to be able to fix them? It seems like something impossible. I don't know. Opaline. But we're going to try. True NT is a wonderful doctor and he hasn't betrayed my trust yet. We'll figure this out soon. My mate says and cups my face. In the meantime, why don't you get some rest? If you need anything and I'm not here, just holler. You'll be in my office. He stands and kisses my head, then helps me lie down. I look to Kaelin and say, thank you for helping me. You're welcome. I will always be there for my Luna. At least someone was there. I nod and finally feel us getting closer. He and Lycon leave the room, and I lie down. I try to sleep, but it doesn't come even though I feel like I might pass out at any moment from fatigue. Questions whirl through my head in a tornado while somewhere my wolf was there, healing just like I was. What if I will never be able to hear mate? My wolf whines. We won't ever be safe when we're away from him. That's what. We need him as much as he needs us. And if we're in trouble, then he'll never find us. Well, never find him if we get lost. Even after finishing the mating process, the bond will never be complete because our ability to communicate has been deformed. This brings tears to my eyes as I think of different scenarios. Scary scenarios that all resemble my past in some way. Do you think it's worth trying? I think if he can help, then we should let him. My wolf advises. Mate will do anything for us. He'll try to strengthen the bond and pay any price. I was glad my wolf had more hope in Lycon than I did at the moment because I was in a really bad mood. I realize this is the most we've ever spoke since losing my hearing, and she seems to be trying more than usual to help me out, though I am certain I get annoying sometimes. My wolf continues to guide me through each step with Lycon in his pack, and it gives me hope. More hope than I've had in a long time. I fall asleep then, and don't feel as alone as usual. 2 days later, Lycon and I are going to Sea Drive. True NT about my ears. I was nervous being out and about, but after spending so much time in bed, I needed to get some fresh air. Lycon told me what happened in the ear, and I was slightly stunned and regretful. He said no one got hurt, that it was mostly a reaction to medicine in my past. But I was still ashamed of my actions. When we stepped into the hospital that afternoon, all the nursing staff eyed me cautiously while going about their work. Lycon brought me closer to him and walked me down a hallway and into an office. Inside was a man with dark skin and black hair that reached his ears. He was a bit overweight, but had chocolate eyes that seemed to soften his stern face. My mate closed the door and leaned against it with one shoulder and gestured to the doctor. Opaline. This is True NT. HES just going to look at your ears today. I nod and look at the male. He smiles slightly and asks, how's your hand? A lot better. Thank you. True NT nods and walks over to a chair beside me, sitting down and taking out a handheld flashlight, microscope device. I know you've had ear check-ups in the past, but I want to see for myself. If that's all right with you. It's fine, I say and hold still while he takes a look in my right, then my left. The whole time, I lock eyes with Lycon for hope that something good might come out of this. He gives me a small smile and nods once, telling me that everything was going to be okay. After a few minutes of going back and forth between both ears, True NT pulls away and goes back to his desk. I wait as he takes out a piece of paper and starts writing something down, then checks his computer. When I see his face, it's hard to read his expression. He says when he looks at me, "First, let me just say that you're a very special case and I hope you don't take this as him studying you like specimen. Him not. I understand." He nods and rolls himself in his chair over and gestures for Lycon to sit beside. "Your ears seem to be healing very slowly. The Peck doctor from Whisper Eclipse sent me a scan of them when they were first damaged to give me an idea of how bad they were. And they were horrible. Now it's been a few years and you're fully grown, also having a stronger immune system. The good news is that it might not be your brain, and maybe once your ears heal completely, you'll develop that link with others. The bad news is that I can't do much for several reasons. Are you going to at least look at our brain and make sure it's not the problem?" Lycon asks. If Opaline is willing, then we certainly can. True, and he takes a deep breath and puts the paper he was writing on between us. I see a diagram of the inside of an ear. Your eardrums are ruptured too much that if I were to go in and help, it might cause other problems. However, I can give you something that might help it so it doesn't get infected. Like eardrops. Lycon asks in curiosity. True, and he nods. Eardrops. I don't want any more damage to be done. And fair healing by themselves as it is. We just need to give them enough time to see what happens. What if nothing happens? Then you're going to have to either rely on your own strength or find some system with Lycon to communicate privately between yourselves. Anything I might do is too much of a risk to completely ruining your ears forever. Lycon grabbed my hand and squeezed. I look over at him and saw his worried face and questioning look. I squeeze back, trying hard not to look weak in front of this male doctor. My mate pushes some of my hair behind my ear and cups my face. "Do you need time to think about everything?" From the corner of my eye, I see True NT put his things down and exit the room, shutting the door on his way out. My eyes land back on Lycon and I sigh a disappointed breath. What is there to think about? Everything, he says and moves closer to me. It's not common to possibly be deaf for the rest of your life because of rescuing a girl. It's definitely uncommon for wolves to go deaf because they rely on all 5 of their senses. I'm not worried about being deaf, but the communication part. I can't hear you if there is danger or you're in a bad situation. Mates are supposed to protect each other and I can't protect you or this pack. I'm weak. You're not weak. He growls through gritted teeth, his gray eyes glaring at me. And you can protect this pack. You protected Nadine and myself. You protected the children from being torn apart by rogues. You're everything this pack needs. Lycon, I gasped, trying and failing to keep my emotions at bay. Don't think they will accept me as their Luna when they find out I'm deaf. I don't think they'll let it happen. You need to have more confidence in yourself. Opaline, just because you're deaf doesn't mean you can't do the things the rest of us can. I shake my head. I can't hunt in human form, fight, talk to multiple people at once, or even keep someone out of danger because I'm not focusing on the enemy unless the victim is out of the way. I'm useless in my human form. Lycon pulls me into his lap, careful of my injured hand, and holds me firmly against his chest. He makes me look up at him for a moment to say, "You're anything but useless and weak," before letting me rest against him. Lycon came by not long after Opaline and I returned home. She said she was going to unpack carefully and maybe nap, so I led Kale into my office. I told him what True NT said about Opaline and the questions asked by her and I. I said how her self-confidence in being the perfect Luna for this pack was very low and I didn't know how to pull it up. I explained to him what she said to me when NT gave us time in his office, and what I felt from her. I didn't think I've ever seen a Luna struggle as much as Opaline is struggling. 1 minute, she is ready to be Luna and feeling great. The next, she's putting herself down over the pack's ability to accept her, to her disability. It is truly something depressing to see, and just the thought of her being so down-hearted was breaking my heart. When I finished my story, Kalen sat back in his chair with an odd expression. I watched him for a moment before I got irritated. You have a contemplative look on your face. What is it? Well, hell, maybe we should go on a pack hunt or run or something. Get her out into the open and around the others. It wouldn't just be for her benefit or theirs, but for yours too. Running always seems to give you ideas and clear your mind. Maybe you'll be able to come up with something. I shake my head. I don't want to run him on unless she's able to hear me through the link. Don't use the link at all. Make everyone turn it off and act normal. I stared at him as if he had the heads. It would make her feel a little better if you did. And I know she has a wounded hand. But I have a feeling it's almost healed. Your mate needs to meet them eventually, and if standing and introducing herself on a raised platform isn't going to do it, then this should. Sign. I look out the window and see Jenny walking towards the front door. My wolf instantly starts to growl, and I turn to my best friend. How about you go entertain our guest while I finish a few last-minute papers here? His expression is confused for a moment until we hear the doorbell. After a moment of watching me, he stands and walks to the door. When he turns back, he says, "Is Aaron still planning on coming to the Luna ceremony?" Yes. His lips thin. You might want to prepare our men for any kind of attack. I nod and he leaves. Then I link Kurt and a few others and have them meet me in the pack house in an hour. Then I link Nadine and ask her if she could come by and maybe help Opaline if she needs it. She said she'd be over in 10. So I sit back down and let out a long breath. After a moment, there is a soft knock on the door. I look up and invite the person in to see my mate cradling her hand. What is it? Opal. I can't sleep and this is bugging me, she says and looks down at her hand. Do you still have the painkillers? I open a drawer and grab the bottle, then walk over to her and hand her a pill. She takes it gratefully and embraces me. I hug her back. Then she steps away and looks around. What are you doing? Ordering people around. Paperwork. Going crazy, I say, and she smiles. I smile back and take her injured hand in mine, looking it over. Will you let me unwrap it and see how it looks? Opal nods and we walk over to my desk. I set her on top of it, then stand between her legs and carefully undoing her cast. Where is your mother and father? Traveling around the world. I told them they could and they have already blessed you as Luna. They needed time for themselves, so I took the liberty and helped them get started. Is the Luna ceremony the same for every pack? My mate asks softly. I look up at her and nod. The Luna ceremony is, but the Alpha ceremony is not. My pack decided long ago that they should be the same as to keep the two leaders equal. But others either have Alphas do test strength, to see their strengths and abilities to determine if they can lead. All packs want strong leaders, but they don't always find them the same way. When I pull the cast off, her hand is warm and the skin is baby soft and delicate. The swelling is almost gone as well as some bruising, but it looks like she never broke it. Opaline stares at her hand for a long moment before using her other hand to touch it. Do you consider your pack's ceremony to be the most lenient on Alphas? I shrug. One of them. She furrows her brows. Who do you think is the most lenient? The Black Rock pack. I smile when her head tilts to one side in curiosity. I have a childhood friend who is Luna to that pack. She told me that our mate's ceremony was pretty much a party. In their pack, they use celebrations to see how well their alpha can handle good and bad situations, how they handle being overwhelmed with surprises, and how well they handle unexpected surprises. Opal's face blushes when she asks, did her mate get naked too? No, I chuckle. Her mate wore a tux, but I don't regret anything. I hate tuxes. She smiles and I hear a knock. Come in, I say as my thumb strokes her injured hand and my eyes watch her seemingly fiddle with my other hand. The door opens again and I glance at it to see Nadine. Her eyes go wide and her hand flies to her mouth, but I shake my head. It's fine. We didn't do anything. Opaline notices me talking and looks over her shoulder at the woman. Nadine, you're all right. My mate carefully climbs off my desk and makes her way over to her friend. I'm slightly disappointed, but overly joyed she found someone to hang out with when I'm busy. I just swung by to see how you were doing. Nadine says, BER2LF apologized for hurting you and Kaylin, and wanted to come, but didn't think HEDB accepted onto the territory. The woman looks at me and I know it's her way of asking if her mate could be closer to her. To be accepted into the pack since he was rogue. Since mates couldn't live without one another. Have him meet me later this afternoon and we can work something out. Nadine smiles gratefully and nods slightly. Thank you, Alpha. No problem, I say and get Opaline's attention. Nadine is going to spend a couple hours here with you. Kale and I need to go somewhere to sort out a few issues. Call me if something happens. Okay. Where are you going? She asks hesitantly. Peck house, I say and kiss her. I need to figure out who my strongest men are. Why? I smile at her questions. So I can protect you. At this she frowns. Why me? Nadine answers this question. Because a Luna is the heart of every pack. The Alpha is the power and strength the pack can count on to protect them. But the Luna is what keeps everything in balance. It's hard to have one but not the other. Hard to keep control. Opaline doesn't seem offended or happy about the idea, but confused. I cup her face and lock onto her celeste eyes. It's nothing to worry about. We all know you can handle yourself in a fight. But it's the love of the pack members towards their leaders that drives them to protect and honor us. Besides, they don't just protect you. Each time a man or woman fights, they're protecting both of us equally. As long as they have us, they will be loyal enough to fight until the bitter end. She nods and relaxes, still thinking hard about what this means. After a moment, she wraps her arms around my neck and kisses me before grabbing Nadina's hand and saying, I'm almost finished unpacking. Then we can do something. With that, the two disappear into the hallway. I steel myself for seeing my men and the questions they'll throw at me about Opaline, then go outside to the pack house to meet them. Does everyone understand now? I ask 50 men to hours later. Garam, a bulky guy with a hard expression and cold eyes, says, So shall be having a Luna ceremony later. Why not now? I sigh, rubbing my temples because I've explained this already. Luckily, Kaelin answers, She's not ready. Her confidence was shot the day she lost her hearing, so putting her in a position where it takes a lot of guts to stand up in front of a lot of unknown wolves is like telling her to go hunting for a night alone. She needs time, and giving her a week or so will give her that. Michael nods and crosses his arms. So, who's on first watch for our Luna? Darian. You, and drive even tomorrow morning at 7:30 sharp. Bring whatever you need. I'll introduce you to her tonight after the run. Kaelin looks at me in surprise. You're actually doing it. Yes, she needs it. Like you said. Kaelin looks back at the men in front of us and nods. I try to hope that this isn't needed and am overdoing it. That we won't have an attack that LL hurt Opaline. But all my suspicions usually come true. I wouldn't be surprised if this did as well. Alpha, there is someone at the territory. They request a presence with you and your mate. Rhett said with some hesitation. Who is it? Beta VUK from Vengeful Starpack. I curse under my breath and walk out of the room. Why? He won't answer. I growl in frustration. Keep him there. He is not allowed in. Kaelin catches up to me and follows, not bothering to ask questions. Shifting, I run into the forest and head south towards where Vengeful Star and my pack meet borders. Something isn't right about the beta coming here, especially when you won't give a reason for being here. When I arrive and stand beside Rhett, the UK is pissed off at being told to wait, but I don't care. He walks up and his wolf is pulled to the front, making his eyes amber. I narrow my eyes at him in warning, to which he responds. Nice of you to finally meet me. Alpha-like on. What do you want? Buck looks around. Where's your mate? Home. Getting rest like I asked of her. The beta sneers. Is she on her deathbed already? What happened to her? It's none of your concern. I say flatly. Did you just come here for my mate? Or is there a logical reason you wanted to see me? Book sighed softly and turned around, hands going to his pockets. Arin would like to invite you and your mate over for lunch, or maybe dinner tomorrow night. He wants to congratulate 10 finding each other and giving you his blessings. I'm afraid I have to decline. I say casually, my mate and I have something going on tomorrow and won't be able to make it. Buck smiled. Lunch it is then. Wonderful. Arin will be delighted. With that he walked away, chuckling to himself with triumph. It took all my strength not to rip him apart. Opaline, Nadine and I finished putting away my belongings, then watched movies in the living room, sharing popcorn together. She explained what happened with BR to LF when he found her and on the night of the bar, then explained how she's been meeting him on the western border to talk. Apparently, she couldn't fight the bond between them and decided to let him talk. Unapproved of her going as long as she stayed inside the territory and kept BR to LF out. Then she said her mate might be able to come visit soon. I was happy for her and wanted the absolute best, even if I didn't like him that much. After 3 movies, we went to the kitchen and decided to make dinner for the guys. Nadine told On to bring Kale in at my request, and he replied with, "Be there soon." We made pumpkin pie from scratch, a beautiful green salad with a vinaigrette, roasted vegetables with a hint of rosemary, and tea, bone steak. Nadine explained how the wolf males eat 5 times as much as human males and we needed to make more than usual. I commented that was why his plate was stacked so high at the dinner in my family's pack. It was a couple hours later when Nadine heard the front door open and close and boots on the floor, coming towards the kitchen. I was just putting the pie in the oven to keep it warm until the meal was finished when I feel Nadine start running. Closing the oven, I turned to see not just On and Kaylin at the door to the dining room, but also the male who broke my hand. BR to LF, Nadine's mate. Nadine jumped into BR to LF's arms, making his eyes brighten before they landed on me and they darken again. On walked towards me, wrapping his arms about my waist and pulling me close. I looked up at him and he said, "It smells wonderful in here. Do you need help?" Looking around at the food, I shake my head. "It's ready. I just need to get plates and stuff." He kisses my head then pulls away. "Let me. Why don't you go see Kaylin?" "But you're not supposed to help." I hiss. Raises his brows in shock. "What do you mean? I don't want you to help. I want you to go sit down because I want to do it and help you." I had no idea if that made sense to him, but I wasn't going to tell him that I did this for him specifically. My mate narrows his eyes as if he's trying to understand what's going through my head, but then steps back and raises his hands. "Okay, I'll go sit down with Kaylin. At least let Nadine finish helping you." I nod and turn to get plates. Nadine appeared beside me a minute later and started helping me dish out food onto 3 plates for the men, and 2 for us. Nadine took 1 plate to her mate while I took the other for Kale and On. Kale accepted mine with a smile and a thank you, but On pulled me onto his lap and kissed me, murmuring how lucky he was to have me, feeling slightly embarrassed. I pushed him away playfully and told him to eat so I could get my food. Once we all were seated and had dug into the food, On got my attention with a nod at BR to LF's direction. I looked over to the other side of me where Nadine and her mate were seated and found the male's eyes on me again. "I am sorry for what happened. I just wanted to get to my mate and was going insane." I give him a tight-lipped smile and keep my injured hand under the table, on my lap. "It's fine. I should have listened to you and hear your reasonings, but at the time you and your buddies seemed threatening. I felt the need to protect Nadine because I considered you a threat. That," he adds on, "and because I'm a rogue who doesn't belong." "Can you blame her?" Kaylin asked sharply. "Not all rogues are bad." Beta Kaylin. "There are good wolves who have done nothing wrong that are struggling to survive. Young women and children who are in need of shelter and protection. There should be no reason why she felt threatened because I'm rogue." Suddenly, I was only focusing on BR to LF and seeing those words. All I could think about was that day long ago. Then the other night. I laughed harshly, making everyone look at me. "I'll always feel threatened by one of you. Always go to whatever means necessary to protect someone like Nadine so she is not treated the same as that girl 3 years ago." Startled by my outburst, BR to LF just stared at me. Nadine looked ready to drag her mate out of here and away from me, but at the same time, comfort me. I turned to the other 2 and saw Han had on an approving expression while Kaylin was unreadable. I stuffed a bite of steak and vegetables into my mouth and focused on my plate. From underneath my eyelashes, I saw the others slowly begin eating as well. Underneath the table, Han grabbed my hand gently and pulled it towards him. I looked at him and he smiled softly, mouthing the words, "That's my girl." His gray eyes watched me steadily as I finished my food. Kale got my attention by tapping the table twice, and when I looked up he said, "Thank you for dinner. Ladies, it was fantastic." I smiled, then looked at Nadine, who jumped up. She faced me saying, "Opal, we forgot the best part." Realizing she was right, I followed her, seeing the men's confused expression. When we entered the kitchen, I grabbed my friend's arm and stopped her. "I'm sorry, Nadine, for talking to BR to LF like that. I understand. Opal, I saw the way your eyes seemed to glaze over when he showed up at the bar. It's fine, but I shouldn't have. It wasn't right because he doesn't know or understand." Nadine put a hand on my shoulder and shrugged. "True, but you are my Luna. I'm always going to be on your side." Smiling, we went over to the oven and started dishing out the pie. After the meal, the 5 of us went into the living room and watched a movie together, Nadine and BR2LF on one couch, Lycon and I on another, and Kale in an armchair alone. He didn't seem to mind though, but I felt bad for him. He caught me watching him and gave me a sad smile, shrugging his shoulders as if to say, "It'll happen eventually." Lycon glanced at the clock halfway through the movie and furrowed his brows. He glanced to his friend, then paused the movie, making Nadine throw a pillow at him. He caught it, then sat up. "Let's go for a run before it gets too dark." Kale agreed, as well as Nadine and BR to LF, but I sat there in silence. I was disappointed he'd want to go on a run even though I was injured. I wouldn't be able to run, let alone walk in my wolf form. Besides, it wasn't worth stopping the movie. I said, "You go ahead. I'll clean up dinner." Lycon catches me before I can start walking to my destination, then pins me against the wall as gently as he could. I try not to show my shock and fear of what is about to happen, but he seems to know anyways. "I'm not going to hurt you. Opaline, this is for privacy and so you can run away from me." "Privacy for what?" "To talk," he says and leans closer to me, his warm breath fanning my face. "You are not going to argue and stay here by yourself. You're coming on the run." I furrow my brows. Lycon, I can't. I wouldn't be able to keep up, let alone go as far. Resting his brow against mine, he kisses my nose. "You're coming with us, even if I have to carry you. I don't want you staying here alone." "By yourself?" Sulking, I wasn't going to sulk. I spat. "Then you are not going to clean the kitchen without some help," he says evenly. "You'll be able to come with us and have some fun. The pack wants to see their Luna, and this is the perfect time." "What if I don't want to go?" I ask softly. "Why wouldn't you want to go?" "Because I just don't." Lycon chuckles. "Give me a better reason than that." I opened my mouth, but then couldn't think of one. I didn't even know why I was arguing with him. I had no idea why I didn't want to go on a run when I loved running. He must have read my expression because he grinned. "I take it that you're going to listen to me now." I shrug and push him away playfully. "I guess, but I'm not changing out there." Taking my hand, he tells the others to go on ahead and we'd be out in a minute, then leads me up to our room. Going into the bathroom, I undress and shift, setting my clothes on the counter, then scratch at the door. Lycon opens it and steps aside, watching me jump onto the bed to wait for him. But instead of going into the bathroom, he comes over and brushes both hands through my fur. I almost purr at the sensation it sends down my back and through my tail. "I love your coat, Opaline," he says in awe. I sit back and watch him go away to change, just imagining hearing his voice with my human ears instead of my wolf's. It only takes a minute before his big black wolf canters over and licks my nose, then strides out of the room. It's when I go to follow him that I realize my paw doesn't hurt anymore and I don't have a limp. I howl my joy, making it echo off the walls. Lycon looks back at me with a wolfish smile and begins his song. When I stop to breathe, more wolves are howling outside, it melodious and filling the night with good vibrations. My mate leads me out and towards the pack house to where over 100 wolves wait, including BR to LF. Whining, I leap in between Lycon's legs and try to feel invisible, but I know they are staring. Above me, Lycon growls lowly, then howls again. Everyone joins with him, ready to stretch their legs. A few moments later, we begin. I stay under on the whole time, feeling safe and utterly small beneath him while everyone else circles us at random distances. Kale and another male stay beside us at all times, and Nadine stays with her mate right behind us. Lycon doesn't ask if I need help or if my paw hurts, but trusts I will let him know. I find that I'm looking at all the wolves in a somewhat shocked state. It's overwhelming to see them all and not know who they are personally. Some of us come to a stop near a little creek and drink while others continue at Lycon's approval. I noticed another female close by, always watching Lycon as if hoping he'd notice her. But he doesn't. Lycon is so focused on making sure I'm all right to bother with anyone else. When the female and I lock eyes, I know something is between them, something I got in the way of. Lycon never said anything about being with another female, but then maybe he wouldn't. My mate nudges me in the shoulder to get my attention and I decide to take my mind off of the female and have some fun. Spinning around, I lower my front and give a playful yip. Lycon does the same, still much larger than I am. He nips at my ears and I leap onto his back, biting fur and swatting his tail. Wolves watch us from all around, intrigued and curious. I got distracted and Lycon was able to grab my tail and pull me off him and between his front paws. Growling lowly, he leans his nose closer and intensely looks into my eyes. I lick him, wagging my tail and giving a demanding bark. He stands tall, looking down at me with a thoughtful expression, turning over on my back. I put my paws up and whine, asking for a belly rub. Lycon rolls his eyes, taking a step back. My ears go flat in disappointment until he lunges forward and nuzzles my belly with his nose, licking and gently playing around. I yip and bark, squirming beneath him. When he stops, panting for air, we lock eyes, not noticing the world around us. He licks my nose, my cheek, then my eyelids before standing up and backing away, allowing me to do the same. I press my body against his, pressing my head to his side since I couldn't get any higher. He winds his head around the back of my neck, breathing in my scent while he has the moment of peace. I go under him and come up so my head is at his chest. Looking up at him, he gazes down at me then looks around. We were alone except for Kale and the other male. Everyone has moved on and it was dark. Kalen's amber eyes glowed bright as he waited for Alpha's orders. The other male seemed to look around the area carefully. I came out from under Lycon and sat in the middle of the three, looking at each of them in turn and wondering why they weren't doing anything. Finally, my mate looked at me and gestured home with his head, starting to walk. I leapt over and walked beside him, loving the feeling of someone beside me who I could trust. Thank you so much for joining me in this obsession with werewolves. I hope you've had a great time and can't wait to come back for more. Remember to subscribe, leave your comments, and share this passion with others. Until next time, keep being obsessed.